Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the under-the-radar games of the weekend. One that happened earlier this week in the MAC that is absolutely massive. Bowling Green gets a huge win and definitely puts themselves in a great position for that conference going forward. But let's get into my best bets. As we head into Week 12, there's a number of games that I feel pretty confident in. And frankly, maybe a little bit too confident, but at the end of the day, I think I have some pretty good picks here. And I think there's a number that are going to be a little bit up in the air. There's going to be a number of games that are kind of hard to get a beat on. Even this late in the season are a little bit hard to get a beat on. And we'll start with this one. I think Texas is going to cover that spread of 12 points against Arkansas. They're in a position where you have Taylor Green coming back, you have Jaquindon Jackson coming back, and that has brought this number down a little bit from about 14 to about 12. I still think Texas has it. I think this is a Texas team that we'll find out just how real what we saw last week was. You know, they tore Florida to pieces, threw the ball downfield really well. Can they continue that going into this week against one of the worst pass defenses in the country? They gave up 550 yards to Ole Miss. They really struggled to corral Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee and really their speed. Texas has a lot of speed on their team, so that's going to be a huge problem for Arkansas in this game. And as long as Quinn Ewers can be accurate, it's going to be a really long day. The Texas O-line has really started to find its level, it seems. Not necessarily playing elite football, but definitely is playing a lot better than it was before the bye week. You have Quinn Ewers, looks like he's back to fully healthy, and you have an Arkansas back end that absolutely can be torn to pieces. So I think Texas tosses the rock around, gets a very comfortable win, and they continue moving on their way to a possible SEC berth and possible CFP berth at the end of the day. But I think they get a dominating win after another dominating win over Florida. And then Tulane and Navy. I think we're going to see some points in this game. Now, I understand this game is not going to be a ton of possessions one way or the other, with these two teams being relatively heavy run teams, no doubt about that. But when you look at Navy, they've been able to score the ball really, really efficiently. And this Tulane team, not necessarily the best when you talk about defending the run, at least in a triple option style, because not many people can do that very well. But then on the Tulane side, they're just rolling right now. Darian Mensah, as long as he does not make mistakes, they have dudes all over the place, including Makai Hughes at running back, that are going to be an absolute problem for Navy. And I don't think they're really going to be able to keep up with. I mean, we saw Navy against someone like Jeremiah Love, excuse me. I don't necessarily think you have Makai Hughes on that type of level, but a very good running back that absolutely can make you pay pretty much every single chance he gets. So I think Navy is a really, really fun team. I don't think that defense is going to be able to corral Tulane. And then on the other side, I think Tulane has a really solid run defense overall. I just think that triple option look is going to be a little bit too much for them. I think these two teams are going to battle it out. I think there's going to be really, really good scoring in. I think there's going to be at least 53 points in this one. I think they get after each other a little bit, and maybe it's Tulane carrying a little bit of the weight here, but at the end of the day, I think they get over that 53. Then I'm going to take USC minus 7.5 against Nebraska. A little bit nervous about this one because Jaden Mayava is taking over at quarterback, but I really like this kid. I think he's an absolute beast. If you didn't watch him at UNLV, he's a very, very good dual threat quarterback. When you think about the great quarterbacks that Lincoln Riley has had, all of them have had that ability. All of them had that a little ability to scoot a little bit, whether it's Baker Mayfield being able to extend plays, Kyler Murray being one of the more electric runners in the entire sport, Caleb Williams being able to extend plays, Jalen Hurts being that aggressive, downhill runner. Jaden Mayava can do that. He's a very, very talented player, and with all the different players that you could kind of compare him to throughout in terms of his play style, it's a lot like Caleb Williams. It's not quite to the level of Caleb Williams when it comes to talent, but with the way that he plays, really does resemble Caleb Williams, and that kind of fits into what Lincoln Riley's going to do. For Nebraska, I think they've just gotten beaten down. I think they're in a position where that team is in a really tough spot behind the scenes. And now, I can't necessarily prove that. Maybe they'll come out there and totally prove me wrong this upcoming weekend. But I think USC is in a position where their back is up against the wall. They have to get a win. They know they have to get a win. And for Nebraska, I just think they're in a really weird spot. I don't know how healthy Dylan Raiola is going to be. I don't know how into this game this team is going to be overall. And I think Nebraska continues to fall. I think USC kind of rolls here. Jaden Mayava puts on a show and people start to worry that maybe Lincoln Riley has his next guy at quarterback. Then I'm going to pick South Carolina minus 14 against Missouri. South Carolina is just better than Missouri. I'll be totally honest. Lenore Sellers is playing really out of his mind right about now. The D-line for South Carolina against the O-line for Missouri, one of the biggest mismatches of the entire weekend on the slate. So you're going to have a battle on your hands if you're Missouri and that offensive line. And Missouri is very likely to start Drew Pine in this game. So he had a solid game against Oklahoma. Getting that win is absolutely huge for this program, but he only completed 50% of his passes. If you're going to give Nick Emanwari in that back end a number of chances to pounce, they're going to take it, and they're going to go down and score points, and it's going to become a nightmare day for you. Missouri is a good team, but the two teams they've gone on the road and played against ranked teams against, 65 has been the margin of, they've lost those games by a margin of 75-10. That was what I was looking for. Apologies for that. But I do think the Gamecocks roll in this one. I think Missouri's a good team. I don't think they're nearly the team that they are being ranked as, and I think South Carolina might be even better than what they're being ranked as, frankly. Then Oregon, Wisconsin. I like the over 52 in this one. I think this Wisconsin team's being a little under talked about. I'll just put it that way. I don't necessarily think they put together a great year, but I think Luke Fickell has a little bit something more in them, and I think this team is playing a little bit more tougher football than people realize. You also have an Oregon team on the other side that has been absolutely crisp the last couple of weeks. I even thought about taking Wisconsin against the spread, but went a little bit away from that, went for the over instead, and I think this is going to be a huge game for this Oregon offense. You look at the run game that they've been able to develop, even without Jordan James likely in this game, Noah Whittington's going to be more than ready to roll, and he's going to be an absolute problem for them to deal with. So I think they're just going to be able to score. The Wisconsin back end is a very good one. They've been able to slow down a lot of offenses, but Miller Moss was able to throw for 300 yards against them. I think Oregon has definitely the passing offense that USC has. So I think Wisconsin and Braden Locke are going to be able to at least get their fair share in this game. I do think Oregon's probably going to carry a lot of the weight here, to be totally honest, but I do think Wisconsin's in a position where they can at least get a couple of scores on the board. Although last week was very rough for Braden Locke, I think he's moving in the right direction and can make a couple of plays here. And then I like the under in the Tennessee-Georgia game. I think this is going to be a fist fight for 4 quarters. You have two offenses that have been a little bit all over the place. You have two defenses that have been two of the best in the SEC, and they're battling in what might just be a must-win. So on one side, you have the Georgia O-line that is just an outright problem. They got absolutely exposed last week when they played Ole Miss, and this D-line group for Tennessee might be as good, if not better, than that Ole Miss group. So it's going to be a really tough battle for that O-line to win. I don't see the run game for UGA getting going much at all, and we'll talk about an injury there right after this in the next segment. But then for Tennessee, whether it's Nico or it's not, this pass game has been out of sync for the last couple of weeks. It felt like they might have found something last week, but I can't necessarily bet on that. I think it's going to be a fight back and forth, and I think they're going to miss a lot of big-time opportunities. I do have Georgia winning this game, but I think it's going to be a pretty ugly one. I think it's going to stay on the ground, and I don't think either team is going to have too much success on the ground. So it's going to be a battle, and while I think Georgia's going to win, I think they're going to have to absolutely fight and claw, and that defense is going to have to make a ton of big plays for that to happen. Then Kansas State minus 8.5 against Arizona. This is going to be a huge game and one where, honestly, I could have flipped this pick and felt plenty good. I'll be totally honest. And honestly, if you flipped the place that this thing was playing, I probably would flip my pick. If you told me that this was at Arizona instead of at Kansas State, I'm almost definitely going with Arizona State. But now you're in a position where Kansas State is at home, and they're a totally different team at home than away from home. They're undefeated at home this year. They're 3-2 on the road, and Avery Johnson has really struggled on the road. He's played great football at home. He's been absolutely incredible, especially towards the back end of the season when they've been playing at home, and I think he's going to be able to find it in this one. I think that pass offense is going to be able to get going. I think DJ Giddens is one of those guys that you're just not really going to be able to stop. You might be able to slow him down a little bit, hold him to 3.5 yards per carry or something like that, but he's going to batter away at you, and it's going to find openings at some point. I also worry about how healthy Cam Scadaboo is. I know that he is back, and I have no doubts that he's going to play pretty good football, but at the end of the day, is he fully ready to roll? Are they going to have to give it to a couple other guys a little bit more? Are they going to have him in the pass game the way that they really like to? So I like KSU to win this one by a pretty comfortable margin, keep the chaos in the Big 12, and especially more than anything else, I like Arizona State's offense to kind of just sputter in this one. I don't think it's in a very great position, especially passing the ball, and I think Kansas State just sells out against the run and really stifles this Arizona State offense. Then Boston College SMU over 53.5 is my final pick here, and it's a really interesting game going on in Dallas this upcoming weekend. I mean, you have Thomas Castellanos, the starter for Boston College, no longer the starter for Boston College, and he is no longer with Boston College. He is probably not going to travel with them to this game, is likely going to enter the portal, and probably will find a new place to play after being benched last week for Grayson James. So that will be your starter. Grayson James will be the starter for Boston College under center, and Boston College's run game has really taken off over the last couple of weeks. Robichaud has been an absolute problem to take down, and while I think SMU is going to be able to slow it down, I don't think they're going to be able to stop it altogether. I think this team is going to really want to fight, especially with a lot of the craziness that's happened behind the scenes over there at Boston College. I think they're going to want to fight in this game and at least prove themselves. I think they can do that offensively. Now, on the other side, you have Kevin Jennings, and he's been absolutely incredible this year. Even after losing RJ Maryland, they've been really, really great offensively, and I think they can carry quite a bit of weight here, probably score 35 plus in this game, and put on a little bit of a show. So I think we get over that 53.5, get to at least 54 points in this game, and I think it's going to be a really fun game in the ACC that has a couple of, weird wrinkles in it with that quarterback position for Boston College, but it's going to be a crazy week. You have so many different games where I looked at one line, I looked at one, over, under, what have you, felt pretty good about it, and then talked myself out of it the next second. And a lot of those picks that I just had, I was fighting myself just a little bit with them, but at the end of the day, got to move forward, got to be confident. Hopefully, we can get on the right side of 500. That's where we sit right now. I believe we're 34-2 on the season. So hopefully, we can get on the right side of that, bounce back from 2 pretty tough weeks the last couple of weeks. But we'll bounce back this upcoming week, hopefully, and get back on the right track. But let's take our last break here. And when we come back, we got to get into a little bit of a wrap up. We got some headlines. We got to talk about the future of the postseason with the Big 12 and the ACC. Bryce Underwood with a ridiculous NIL deal and a couple of different things around some injuries this upcoming weekend. We'll break them down right after this.